All right. Are you guys able to see my screen right now? Yes. If you can just let me know in the chat box there. Yeah. Good. Good. Great. Perfect. That is awesome. So from now on, the moment I start the presentation, I probably won't be able to read all of the chats anymore, but I will do my best to get to it, especially later on. But yeah, okay. That way everybody can see my screen a little bit more. So who is this training for? I wanted to talk a little bit about this because I know that a lot of you guys are coming in from all over the world, and probably where you are in your calligraphy journey is not quite certain yet, but definitely this particular training is for aspiring calligraphers who are thinking of starting a calligraphy business that you are going to enjoy and love, that it will be a joy-giving piece to you. If you've already started your business, that's also okay. That's great. You are absolutely welcome here. Or if possibly you haven't even started your calligraphy journey yet, but thinking like maybe this would be good for you, absolutely. That's also absolutely okay. I love that you are here and planning ahead, because I do think like a business is like a journey. It's not like a one type, it doesn't just like show up like the next day. It involves a lot of time and effort to work on, and especially with regard to a calligraphy business, because it involves like a skill. Like you're not simply buying and selling things. There's a skill element to it that propels it. And so in and for me, talking about a calligraphy business, I would love for the calligraphy industry to be elevated over time, because I want you guys to create businesses that not only flourish, of course you're doing calligraphy, we want it to flourish, but I also want it to blend with your passion, your unique strengths as a calligrapher or creative, and the market needs as well. Okay, so what are you going to expect in the next 60 and possibly 75 or 90 minutes? Because I'm going to try to keep all the talking to the low, but there's quite a bit of stuff to go over. I will quickly share a little bit about myself, because I know some of you guys have yet to know me, or coming in from other avenues, or somebody might have recommended this webinar to you. So I'll do a really, really quick spiel of who I am. And then, of course, we talk about those 5 key lessons I've learned so far with regard to establishing a good foundation for a calligraphy business. And then, of course, the Calligraphy Business Kickstarter. So just a disclaimer, I know this workshop is for free, and a lot of this information I'm sharing is like valuable, but the kind of like the core of like how to will be in a paid course. So that's the Calligraphy Business Kickstarter. It's a 6-week all-in-one course that I will be talking about later on in the workshop. So there will be some special bonuses too for the people who joined the workshop. So I'm really, really glad that you are here. And as I mentioned, the questions will be at the end, please, and thank you. All right, so a little bit about myself. I am the owner of Written Word Calligraphy and Design, and I also have another business called Larkin Knives. So that's like a vegan leather brand, very into e-commerce. And my calligraphy business has evolved a lot over the years. We started off with, wedding invitations, and primarily doing that. I did some day of design as well. Then I did some in-person workshops, and over time it's developed into like having calligraphy supplies, and now into online courses. I've also been so grateful to be featured in many different places, like all publications all over the world. And a lot of people actually ask me, like, Carla, how did you get into calligraphy? Or like, how did you get into a business? Like, what did you study in school? But I actually started off with a business degree in school, and I love doing that. And I feel like a perpetual entrepreneur. So I feel excited to be sharing and kind of getting to this point of like teaching people how to run a business after like these many years of developing many and being able to kind of share my passion with you, because I just know how difficult it is not knowing so many things in the process. Last year, I also got the chance to write a book, which is honestly really, really surreal to me until this day. Like that fact that a book is there with my name on it. And of course, this year and the past year, I was able to develop some of these courses that kind of move through the process of calligraphy. And I mean, so many of you guys are from my classes, as I mentioned earlier. So from the beginner calligraphy to intermediate, and then to the master classes, which are like the invitation design bootcamp, and this one that I'm going to be talking about later on, which is about running your own calligraphy business and establishing a really good foundation for it. So what I wanted to talk about today as well has got to do with the struggles, because the struggle is real, okay, with regard to like running any kind of business. And in fact, I did a survey on this, like a 500 people survey, and the biggest struggle that came out of that actually was confidence. And I talked about this on my Instagram post the other day, because a lot of you guys were like telling me, you know, Carla, I just don't know if I can do it, or like, is my skill level there? Or like, there're just so many unknowns in it. And that actually hindered so many of you with regard to creating your business, because either you just didn't have the background for it, or like you're just, there's fears. And that, I want to say that those are normal fears, and you are not alone in that. In fact, like 36.9% of the 500 people actually felt that way. And so it's very natural to feel that way. And because you, with regard to running a business in particular, the thing is, it's not only about knowing how to do calligraphy. You know, there's multiple aspects into it: operations, marketing, there's the clients themselves, there's like how to get yourself in front of people, and then when you're like a fairly shy person, or you just don't feel comfortable about pricing yourself, and or you've experienced pricing yourself and then people like just not responding to you. So a lot of these things kind of like hamper that feel. Or perhaps it could be like just your background, like your, how you've been brought up, that you weren't like in an entrepreneurial environment, and people just think that you shouldn't be venturing out on your own because it's not stable enough, or that it's scary. But my goal is, after sharing some of these five stories, I will be sharing 5 stories about like myself and like how I learned these lessons, that it will help boost a little bit of your confidence, even just like by 1%, knowing that you can start a calligraphy business on your own, but it will take quite a bit of time and effort, but I will be leading you through that. Okay. So let's talk about those 5 keys to a flourishing calligraphy business. I want to take a note here that I am not like a business advisor in the sense, or like I promised you to like make 6 figures or anything like that. It's just because I just don't think that that's like it's not all about making money here. I want you to create a business that, yes, pays the bills, but also is like meaningful, and it's intentional, and that you are flourishing in it. You're like doing meaningful things with your hands, and that you're loving what you do, versus like money, 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 because that is really just not about the money. It's really about like sharing this blessing of an artisan piece of work, from, you know, your hands to somebody else. And these are, you know, lessons I wish I knew before I started my calligraphy business, and I'd love to share that with you today. So the first one is to gear up on your calligraphy skills. So I did a pop quiz the other day on Instagram. Which would you prefer? First one was to start offering your calligraphy or lettering skills, and learn a lot more as you go. So just start going at it. Or you would improve your skills until you feel good enough to launch your calligraphy business. So like a slow and steady approach. So option number 1 was just go for it, just run your business no matter where you are at. Or number 2 is to improve your skills until you feel good enough to launch your business. So 2 varying perspectives here. There's no exact right or wrong. And the results were 65% were in the improve your skills first, so number 2. And then 35 was like learn as you go. And the reason why I talk about this is because I do think that when you want to start your calligraphy business, that you want to think about it, that you have to, like if this was your calligraphy level as a beginner, and when you offer it as a business, you do want it to be more elevated, because people are going to come to you as an expert. And when you're still starting out in your calligraphy skills, your work, it does show in your work when your skills is not yet fully settled. And sometimes when you show yourself in that manner, like when people already see it in that kind of standard, it's kind of harder for them to see that you're growing and improve. They're like, they probably think that this is already like your best foot forward initially. So I think that it's just because like once the moment you hit go in a business, you will have to learn so much more and do so much more, like marketing and operations and all that stuff, than just calligraphy. So your focus is now divided. So I personally recommend people to, find a balance between those two questions I asked, which is to at least find yourself like, gathering more experience, making sure that your calligraphy style is settled more, having 6 to 12 months of experience in calligraphy. And that way, you're whenever you're doing your work, you're not having to worry about like how to do it, because you're already like honing your skills in it. And why would you want to do that? It's because building and gearing up your skills, like taking the initiative to further your skills in all the services that you want to do, will first actually, aside from the ones I've listed here, help you understand what you like to do in the calligraphy business, because you'll realize after you're practicing with it that maybe there are certain things that you don't like very much, and secondly, to help build your confidence for marketing and pricing, because it's just very different to be able to do your actual business itself, without knowing like how much like time it actually takes to do certain things. You can't price it when you don't know how difficult it would be, or like what it involves in it. And of course, once you've really honed your skills, it also helps elevate the business and the industry as well. So when you've but I wanted to say too, if you've already started your business as a calligrapher, even if you're like fairly new to it, I'm not telling you to stop. I would just encourage you to still focus on the skill development, especially in your first year of doing calligraphy, so that you can help refine the look of your work. And honestly, as I mentioned, it will also help you determine the kind of business that you wanted to do as well. Because the thing about calligraphy is we don't have like it's not like a doctor or something where you have like certifications every now and then, like to know that, okay, now this person's in the expert level. You only really know how good this person is by looking at their work, and of course like maybe listening to people's reviews, or if they come like well recommended. But it affects the industry a lot if your work is also reliable, because now they'll think that, okay, yeah, calligraphers can do this, versus like, oh, this person seems like she's knowing what she's doing, she has good photos, but then the actual work that they create is not good enough, and that's because of just a lack of experience. So I did make a YouTube video on this, about like readiness, and we talk a lot about it in the course as well, because it is really important to be able to kind of like make sure that we are positioning ourselves as an artisan piece. Like we don't want it to be, I know I'm teaching a calligraphy course, but like I don't want the industry to be filled with people that are not really knowing what they're doing. And the reason why I also say this is because recently somebody had commented on my Instagram saying, on that particular question, saying it really does depend on what they're offering as well. So for example, if somebody is offering to teach calligraphy, it really does mean that you want to that you have to come in as an expert at it. So if you're still a beginner, then I really don't think you should be teaching calligraphy right away, because especially if you haven't had yet the experience to know all the different nuances of calligraphy. Yes, everybody learns a little bit differently, so that's why the 6 to 12 months is like very loose. It depends on how people learn and how well you learn. But like, for example, it's happened to us even in our industry here in Vancouver, where people, like taken my course, and then a few weeks later create their own calligraphy workshop, and then, have the price like 25% of what the normal rate would be because they're a beginner. And that really affects the industry because it devalues the items. And of course, people might not know the difference between $50 course and a $200 course. They would just go for whatever they might go for whatever is cheaper. Or they might question like, what is wrong with this person? Why is it so cheap? But then of course, then the quality of the result is also very different, right? Like, and that's why I think like if we wanted to, be able to support each other as an industry, it would really help to have that in mind. And I wanted to share a story because of this exact experience of me not knowing enough yet about certain things. And it had to do with my very first welcome sign for a wedding. And at this point in time, I hadn't really worked with wood a lot. And I wasn't entirely sure of the right process to go about it. I was fairly new to staining wood. And I didn't know like that there were so many kinds of wood textures and that I had to plan out, like what if it got rained on, or like, how do I transport this properly? Like, how long do I need to stain this thing for, and like what do I need to put on there to make it work properly? There was just so many questions, and at that point in time there wasn't like a lot of information out there to help with it. So like for example, nowadays we've got the Post-its Nook or like Happy Ever Crafter with all of these amazing YouTube videos and tutorials and blog posts about like what to use exactly to make things work. But I remember going to like Michael's and buying all sorts of paint pens and acrylic paints and finishing sprays, and going to Home Depot and buying wood and cutting wood in my garage and making this wooden sign. Clearly it's not worth the $80 that I had quoted this for, because there was just so much more to it than just writing the word welcome to your wedding. And then of course there's like the shipping and packaging aspect to it too. And so just because I just wasn't aware of all of this information, I couldn't put that thing together. All I thought about was just like the actual labor of writing it and possibly the material cost, but like the trial and error part was not, it was very stressful, at least for that point in time. And so, you just don't want that your client job to be the actual absolute first time you do something. It's okay. It does happen that some things are your first time because it's just so rare that would be. But if whatever you could to kind of prepare yourself and improve on your experience, that way you can speak of it with expertise and also know with confidence like how long it would take for you to do it, and price it accordingly with all the difficulty, or provide the options that might be easier or look nicer even for the client. When I was starting my calligraphy business, wooden signs were all the rage. But these days there's so many more other options as well. And for me, that's also the reason why we've done a lot of paper or vinyl or like linen signs, because I have a lot of destination weddings and shipping wood was just so much harder and bigger. And so having like that in your head, in like the back of your head, in fact, that last picture here, this one was a vinyl installation. So I didn't even physically write this because this was a wedding in Bali and I wasn't going to go all the way to Bali just to make this wooden sign, although that would be nice. But, like providing different kinds of options so that you could help with the shipping and all that kind of stuff. And because like the whole pricing element too, and I'll talk about that later in key number 4, it involves all of these other facets as well, that it's not just about like writing those words, welcome to our wedding. And in our course, we will also be talking a lot more about like how to expand your skill sets and like all those resource guides on where to get things done, or like suppliers, and like best practices on like how to communicate with your client, and making them also helping them understand what this is all about essentially. And also that there's going to be a private community where you can ask all of these questions, because sometimes it's just nice to be able to ask somebody in the community, in the industry, of like where things made or like how to do certain things. And moving on, we've got key number 2, which is crafting a target market for your business. So you've probably heard this word target market, but you're like, okay, what is it really? Well, they're your dream clients. And the top 2 struggle that when I did that survey to 500 people was how to reach your clients and book them. But before you can even book your client, you first need to establish what your business is all about first. Like, what is your actual business model? So I have a little secret for you. And this one I had to kind of really learn the hard way, because when I was starting my own business, my other businesses, I found that I just like to do whatever looked nice or what I was good at or possibly seems to be trending. But what I found was that it needs to be a blend of everything for it to sell. Like, I know that there's some people out there that seem to come up with that great idea right at the get-go, and they're the first to market, so they're the first people to offer the service, and sometimes they have that like that advantage. But most of the time we are like in that slow and steady stage, and when we're offering a service that other people do offer, like, we need to create something that is unique to you, like what makes you stand up from others. And that particular one will have to be a combination of what you're really good at, your strengths, passion, what you love doing. Because even if you're really good at something and you don't love doing it, it's not worth doing it. And of course, your market needs. If what you like to do or what you're really good at is something that you know that your market is not going to really like, then either we need to look at where your work would sell, or perhaps we could consider other strengths that you have that we can tweak to serve what the market needs. Because without the buyers, it will be really hard for your business to grow. And that's why in the course we talk about like how to discover like some of your strengths, and talk about the different calligraphy business models, because I've definitely gone through so many. And every year I still go through like goal setting and like thinking about different kinds of opportunities. There's active business ideas, there's passive business ideas, and they're different based on your market as well. Some of you guys had sent in some questions beforehand talking about like, where you are, some of it like calligraphy services might seem really alien. Like, how do you develop yourself in that market? And, there's lots of opportunities, but then how do we get there, right? And so that's why I wanted to share you guys one of my stories, because I had to learn this the hard way as well. And this was an important one because this was my first product line on the wax seals. And I personally thought it was a brilliant idea because, I created custom ones for my clients, and this was my first line of it. So my wax seals don't look like this anymore right now. But at that point in time, it seemed really popular with the wedding world, and people seem to respond to it, and they still do. Right now on Instagram, my videos tend to be really popular with these wax seals. But what I didn't realize was that, that the market for these wax seals was actually very niche, meaning it's small. The people who actually want to buy them is not that many in comparison to the viewership. So say I have like right now, one of our videos has got 500,000 views, but I would say I'll probably get like 2 sales out of it for the monogram wax seals. So that doesn't sound very good, right? And so I felt that I may be putting in an effort to create this video, but I'm definitely not getting the results that I would wish that I would get from it. The production flow could also be possibly optimized, because I also have different business models. Like I have my wedding invitations at this point in time. So I didn't have the time to actually produce these items. I had to get them made. And in order to get things made, usually you would have to get them in bulk, because that's the only way you can get the price lower so that you can offer them and mark up from them when you sell them. But when I was doing that, that means that I would have inventory. So sitting inventory that people might not buy, and especially with the monograms, because they have letters A to Z. So there's 26 letters, and I had to manage inventory for all of them. I also had a dream that these would be in the stores, but I realized very quickly that these people who would buy from like from a wholesaler like myself would need a bigger line of products. And the line would need to be broader. They can't just like have one item, because in order for them to buy from you, you'd need to have a minimum price, and in order to get a minimum price, they can't just have all monograms. They'll need to have other items as well. And then I thought about this more of as an online type of product. But then if I wanted it in the store, this product was hiding like the packaging, so this box kind of goes over this box, and so now I can't, like, people can't see what's inside. So I didn't think about that. And yeah, monograms are just hard to maintain for inventory, because you've got like one country that has so many A's and so another country with so many X's, and it's just you can't win it. It's hard to maintain inventory because you need to have all of them in stock all the time. Don't get me wrong, I love wax seals, and that they are still part of my shop to this day, but there's definitely been frustrations about it because I didn't like really do enough research, or sometimes these are lessons that you learn after you launch. But I wish I thought of that before I jumped on them to begin with. And in the course too, we get to have these group sessions, so I'm calling them the fireside chats, because we're going to have like pretty much a hangout session talking about business, to chat about these business ideas that you guys are having, and maybe we'll have some opinions on it, because depending on which market you are in, we can talk and like kind of vet these ideas out, because sometimes you just don't get to have like-minded people. I've recently started hiring a business consultant, and it's just cool to be able to ask, like, am I doing this right? Like, is this okay? Is this idea okay? Like, am I pricing this okay? Like, so getting all those questions answered and having that private community is just, I think, an amazing part of like running a business. And then the third key is about marketing to the right crowd. So as I mentioned earlier, marketing is like the number two struggle of a lot of you guys. And I get it, because it seems really daunting and almost impossible when it seems like there's a lot of calligraphers out there. How do I stand out? How do I get the clients that I want? And there's also that personality aspect to it too. Somebody asked me on the question box earlier today, was like, do I need to show my face, Carla, like to be able to be successful on Instagram? I'm like, no, you don't need to. It's different for everybody. And it's different for every business model that you're going for. And it also depends on like your services that you're providing. You like Instagram can be effective for some markets and can be effective for certain business models, but not for everything. I do think that it's still important to have visibility, but it doesn't mean that you have to slave all of your hours instead of working into marketing. Because marketing is not just about like, it's not selling too. It's about just creating visibility, and there's sustainable ways to do it without killing yourself, like spending way too much time on content creation. These days, now that I've shifted my focus a lot more on an online course creation, it's very different from the wedding invitation approach. So in some ways, like the way I market to the specific audiences that I'm going for is also very different from the way I market my wedding invitations. I do think that marketing is crucial, if and to your business, especially if you're trying to launch your business in the beginning, because it's how you get your dream customers. And you just have to be in the right places. So it doesn't necessarily mean like putting your face on Instagram. It doesn't necessarily mean posting every single day. And the reason I talk about that is because I was recently speaking with some of my vendors, as like wedding planners, photographers, because some of them, their approach to their marketing is super light. Like some operate primarily only on referrals, or some don't even market at all. And it'll be nice, right? Don't you think, to have like just work come to you all the time? And that's also absolutely possible. And it depends on your business model, your market needs, but you don't need to do all that. In fact, a little secret for you is to know that you actually don't need a huge following, or for example, Instagram following, to book clients or to sell your products. But you do need your content to be seen by the right people. So for example, I certainly think that people should still have a website. Yes, yes. Because you still need to have a place to send people to. That's still a way to market, but having visibility so that people could find you, like putting in the effort to do your SEO. And I talk about that in the course as well, like how to get that all set up. Because when people are trying to look for you, you need to be able to be found. And that also, works with, say, for example, in the wedding industry, like you want to be able to make most of the places where your actual like dream clients already exist. And that's what I talk a lot about in the course, like discovering like where people are like especially for the different like calligraphy business models, and kind of how to maximize those. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to go and pay for ads. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to go and post every single day on Instagram. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to go alive on IG. if that's not where your market is. Because if it isn't, then you might be like talking to them, and some days it feels like that even for myself, because I talk a lot on Instagram, and sometimes I'm like, I feel like none of this is like actually resulting to much. And I mean, I asked you guys also in Instagram recently if you've had any frustrations with it as a business, and how well has it worked for you. Because when I was starting out in the business, the Instagram was my bread and butter for referrals. It did really bring me a lot of business in the beginning, but it has changed so much. And these days, especially, last a few months ago, they decided to focus a lot more on video. And now, like for example, like if you scroll to your feed, you might be seeing like reels all the time, much more than you do the actual posts itself. So it's definitely affected how a lot of us have been posting on Instagram. And if you've ever done any kind of video editing before, you'll know that posting a video takes way more work and time than posting a picture. So that really it helps, makes me evaluate, like, okay, if my market is not here, then should it be, maybe I should pare back a little bit and do like the bare minimum, and then have like focus on the other marketing strategies that really help me book the clients, versus like spending all that time elsewhere. Because it doesn't necessarily mean that, Carla has 125,000 followers, maybe she's getting all the clients that she particularly wants. I will say these days that my wedding clients are not from the Instagram anymore as it was before. But in the course, we do talk a lot about all of those like various marketing methods, including the ones that have been useful to me, and as well as like the, kind of like some of those tidbits that I've learned over time, like how to like make those relationships work, like in those communities that I do find the clients that I love finding. And of course, the key number 4 is to talk about pricing, because like pricing is just so important. I often get asked about pricing, but I'm sure I'm not even getting all the questions about pricing, because some people are scared to ask me about it. It just seems to be a fairly sensitive topic. But I wanted to talk about pricing because I know that a lot of you may like wonder what it is really, and especially because when you're just starting out in the calligraphy world, that you feel like, okay, maybe because I'm just a beginner, I probably should charge low. It doesn't necessarily mean that way, especially if you're coming in with a little bit more experience now that you're like, say, 6 to 12 months in, that your calligraphy style is doing really great, and you're finding like your unique proposition to the market. It's important to get your skill up there. That way you're not a beginner anymore at this time. Because whenever you're charging too low, you tend to also like make people perceive like, oh, is there something wrong with this person's like work? Why is this person like, 25% of the price compared to everybody else? It does create a cycle of discounting. It lowers the value in the market, and it affects other people too, because as you probably know, some clients will probably like shop for prices, and if they can't tell the difference, they don't know what it would be. And I find that when you have a certain amount as well, and if you want to have repeat customers, it's harder to increase prices. So you might get stuck in this like cycle of like low prices. I also think that it's important to like know a little bit about what the industry standards are, or like what people are willing to pay. Like try to kind of live in that realm, and especially when you're starting out, there are some free content on this. When you search up on Calligraphile, the Postman's Nook, like Happy Ever Crafter has like a super cool like hourly rate sheet. She just recently did a pricing workshop. It's thehappyevercrafter.com/pricing. And in our calligraphy business course, we do like talk about those specific formulas and how to calculate pricing. But I want you to like take that as like with a grain of salt, and then also compose it from the other side of things, where you're the one building your pricing based on how hard it is to actually do it, based on your hourly rate, like how much time it involves for you to actually do it. And that way your pricing reflects you. That's why I think like pricing is such a personal journey, because it's not like, for example, like watercolor paintings are a lot harder for me to do than writing and calligraphy. So I tend to price my watercolor work a lot more than calligraphy, because the amount of time it takes, the amount of effort, like the mind energy it takes for me is way more than writing and calligraphy. So consider what your time is worth for you, and because it varies per person, that I think is a better base of it. That way you get your things like yourself covered in it, and that I think helps like boost your confidence as well, of like, this is what I'm worth. But whatever you do choose to price yourself, don't lower your prices when people ask you to do it, because I find that discounting in particular breeds a lot of entitlement. It tends to also create the worst clients ever. It's better to have like fewer higher paying clients that appreciate your work than to have like more lower paying clients that complain about every single thing. Because it's that I've definitely gone that route before when I was starting out in the business, because I just felt I wasn't ready, or I just felt I was fairly new to this. And so I understand that struggle of like, okay, maybe is this, am I doing this right? Like, am I pricing okay? Is this good enough? But then if you kind of move it from the back, where you're kind of building it based on your like skill set and your capabilities, and the, considering the cost and the labor involved, versus like comparing yourself with how much other people are costing, will probably help you as well. Now I want to speak a little bit about like clients like not responding or like ghosting and things like that. And that's kind of the reason why I think like when you're starting out as a calligraphy business, it's okay to test the market. You don't necessarily need to go full time right away, because sometimes it's good to just like kind of grow with the flow, seeing like how people respond to certain things. Because like, yeah, like pricing is a testing game as well, like knowing like how people respond to certain things. But like I said, just whatever it is, whatever you decide to price yourself, but just don't lower it because people ask you to. Consider what your time is worth to you. And one story I wanted to share you about is the mirror seating chart. So, this was a super fun wedding, by the way. This was like a Game of Thrones themed, hence it was called like Table of Thrones. It was a local wedding, so I had access to the mirror a day before the wedding. So you imagine the stress of like having to deal with this. But and that's actually the reason why I don't love doing day of details, because of the stress, because you're like doing things, so many last minute changes. Unlike, a photographer maybe that has to show up on the day, this one is a lot more coordination, like me getting this item, making sure like I've got all the names, like having everything like set up and ready to go. I remember like sending the initial quote for this mirror display, and they were shocked that it would cost them like $7 a name for me to write on it. And with the rental of the mirror, it was going to cost them almost $1,000 to do a seating chart, and it feels like a lot to them. But then I told them, but because like first your volume of names, like the admin of like me also like figuring out like the pickup, the delivery, the packaging, the mistakes, the changes that they had, like they particularly had quite a bit, so like they really maximized their pricing in there, double checking the work, the actual material costs, like the markers that I'd be using, making sure that I would be spraying like a fixative on it so that it won't just quickly rub off, the labor time as well, and the stress, especially these days. Like, my weekends are extra precious to me. As a mom, and so I have to consider that when I create these pieces. So a lot of these things, like people, you might not consider when you're just like, okay, this is like the industry standard. But if your time is different, like the amount of effort that it takes for you particularly to do something, then I think you should charge what you're worth, rather than like considering what everyone else is charging. And then key number 5 is to grow with the changes. So I think it's really absolutely good and healthy to regularly pause, review, debrief to see if what you're doing is still effective. Like, are you reaching your target market? Are you reaching like your target income? Like regular goal setting is healthy, because sometimes it's good to be able to like reevaluate, am I still doing, like, is this like still working, because sometimes things change, right? Like target markets may change, like you move or something, or like your audience is now looking for certain things and you're not offering these particular things. For example, during the wedding season last year, all of a sudden people had to postpone their wedding, and we've never had to do any wedding postponements before. So now, okay, maybe you're like, take the time to create wedding postponement cards, or having change your date cards, so that people can like visually see what are their options now that the weddings are changing, like wedding dates are changing. Also, like life changes, like growing your family, or like sickness, or moving, etc. Like all of these like affect like the growth of your business a lot. And unfortunately, like I know we don't all love changes, but it's part of it. In fact, it's lifelong learning. As a business owner, you don't just know how to do calligraphy, you kind of need to know a little bit of everything. And that's why this course became a course. This initially I was like, should I just do a pricing element to it? But no, I realized that, you know what, the calligraphy business itself, there's so many different aspects to it. That's why you don't actually learn any calligraphy in this business course, particularly. You learn about all the different elements related to running a calligraphy business. And sometimes, you'll realize that you may need to invest in some education, just like this one, consulting, or you might need to grow your team. So for example, like having somebody else to do fulfillment, like shipping your items, because it does take time. Even just today, I had to do a last minute overnight item and to a remote location. So normally I would ship by DHL, but DHL won't be able to ship it by tomorrow. So I had to go to FedEx. So every time I go to FedEx, I had to go and line up and like, make the label. Them typing the label takes a long time sometimes. Sometimes you can't do it all online. So like the online system was broken. So I had to do it in the store. So it's like things you just don't account for, but like they all kind of like involves time that I don't have. And so having a team to do that sometimes is good. And that's why the course will talk a lot more also about like the operations, the financials, the logistics, because it certainly isn't just about like their calligraphy portion to it. And just quickly, I wanted to share, like becoming a mom definitely changed a lot in my business because of my limited time, right? Like I'm such a Enneagram 3, like I love being in control, and being a parent is like letting go of all that control. And I love having focus time when I work, but motherhood is like the ministry of interruption. So I really learned like to work smarter and better, like having different kinds of income streams as a calligraphy business. Earlier today, somebody had asked me, whether or not I think like having a calligraphy business is sustainable. Will it be okay over the years? And I think so, especially if we're doing our due diligence right now to really elevate what it is in the market, and that it becomes more like an artisan business. And that way it will stay. It would stay this time, even though there's like fonts or like there's like we can design certain things a certain way. Especially if you have limited time and resources to do it, like calligraphy is a good business to have. I personally think so. And especially if you think that you'd be able to, especially if you love doing it, I think that's a huge part of running a successful business, is being able to have that passion like driving behind it as well. So just to recap, I've got that 5 keys for you. We've got to gear up on your calligraphy skills, like making sure that we're honing them up, so that way when we come to our client, we're coming in as an expert. Key number 2 is to really craft a good target market for your business. That way you are having a business model that really reflects what they're looking for, and then marketing to the right crowd, and like making most of those different avenues that they're currently at already. And instead of like focusing on your Instagram following, and pricing what you're worth. So like looking internally when you are pricing versus like looking outwardly. And that way you can price what your time is worth to you, and to learn to grow with the changes, even though change can be hard. And like last year, it was an extremely hard year for the wedding season, for the wedding industry. And a lot of people unfortunately lost their jobs, but I still think that a lot of the calligraphers were able to come out of it because they took advantage of like the different other ways to grow their business during this time in particular. Okay, so and that's kind of the reason why I wanted to talk to you guys about the Calligraphy Business Kickstarter. It is like a combination. I kind of find it's an incredible blessing to be able to teach this course, because I just know how hard it is to start a business, and And the calligraphy business in particular is just so close to my heart. It's you know, it's unique. It's based on your particular artistic skill as well as your own strengths. It's just not about like business knowledge, you know, because you're part of the manufacturing process as well, not just like the buying and selling. And you know, the world of calligraphy, or even just like running business in general, there's just so much things going on aside from just knowing that creative manufacturing part, which is like doing the calligraphy portion. There's, you know, just not knowing how things work or like which business model to go for, all the operations, like where to source things, where to sell things, how to do like wholesalers, how to retail your products, or like how to market yourself and get the clients to book you, and what to do with those actual relationships, like what happens like when they book you, or like how do you prepare for an event, or like if you're doing services like in person, like what are your like the checklists for things like that, how do you price something that you've never done, or like how do you price like wedding invitations, or like day of details, or a mural, things like that, all of these like unknowns. And of course there's also the financial parts, like making sure that you can stay afloat over the years that you're going to have this business. And that's why I created the Calligraphy Business Kickstarter. I wanted to have a course that will help people like yourself to start your business, like kickstart your business from concept, like your dreams, and actually have it into reality, like taught by a calligrapher for calligraphers, whether you're like thinking of doing a product or a service, or an online shop, or a blend of all of these different things. And I personally believe that, you know, running a calligraphy business doesn't mean that you have to go full time right away. In fact, like I just made a YouTube video that launched today about like whether or not you should go with a side hustle or full-time business. Everybody has got different capacities. And personally for myself, like running my business while having a full-time job before was hard, because that just meant that I was working like 16 hours a day or more. But that depends on your personal capacity to be able to do that. And if you're not really into weddings, weddings are not the only place that you can make money with calligraphy. There's a lot of other things that you can do with it. I know it's where a lot of people start, and most of us do start in the wedding industry because that's kind of where a lot of like people were introduced into calligraphy. But that's certainly not the only business opportunity. And then of course, I also think that you don't have to work for free when you're starting out, because when you're starting out, you're growing your skills, and there's many other ways that you can go around it, even if it has to do with like having a styled photo shoot. So this is kind of what that course is all about. We're going to have 6 weeks of this. So the first week is all about like finding that business model for you. So if you recall, like key number 2, like talking about like that ideal business model. So we talk a lot about like the target markets and the goals, and like researching your target market very well, and like the different opportunities that you can have. And then week 2, we talk all about like crafting your brand, like building your portfolio, how to build that portfolio, and make your websites, like how to build your website, like what to consider so that your website will, you know, be effective as well, like what the different kinds of information that needs to be in there. You know, we talk about SEO, we talk about social media, like all of the nitty-gritty details essentially. And then there's also like the week 3, the operations sprint. So we talk about like connecting the dots, because you know, when you create the product, you'll still need to find ways to, okay, well, we need packaging, right? We need like the supplier, like shipping, like how does it all flow, right? Like all of these flows need to be all set up before you can even run the business. And of course, before that, even like the business registration, like what kind of business should you be setting up, like the studio setup, the human resources, and like how to manage all this time, because it seems like a lot of things to do. And then of course, like the marketing part, like preparing your launch plan, and then having it sustainable so that you can have people coming in, like your dream clients coming in and booking you. Or if you're depending on your particular business model, that you're going to have clients like visiting your online shop and converting them into sales. And then of course we talk about pricing. As I mentioned, like we in the course, we talk about all those formulas, like how to price yourself effectively for your target market, how to deal with that pushback. And of course, like all of those formulas to build, and like kind of like where I mark up and what I mark up it to. because just from experience, like it just like involves a lot more work than we imagine sometimes. And then of course, the week 6, we talk all about like the client processes. So this is like a part of, that we don't get to talk about usually. It's like what happens once the client is actually booked, right? Or like now we've got this customer, what happens after that? Like how do we, like, do we sign a contract? What kind of contract does it need to have? Or like what are the things we need to talk about? Like how many revisions do we need to go over, for example, for in the realm of wedding invitations, or like products and services, or like returns and like policies and all that kind of stuff, so that you can have a fairly smooth working relationship with your clients. And so what is included in this course is there's going to be pre-recorded videos, and you get lifetime access to these. And in fact, there's going to be more than 11 hours because we are recording a whole bunch of new ones next week. We are just adding to it because as I kind of was going through it again over the past few weeks, I just wanted to add even more content to beef this up. And we also, worked on a whole bunch of guides and worksheets filled with like industry secrets and like best practices. And you will also get an access to a private community where you can learn alongside like fellow business owners, and fellow calligraphy business owners. Sorry about that. And as I was mentioning, you will also get access to these super cool fireside chats. So we're going to have these like live sessions, kind of like what we have today, except that people are not going to be on mute. We get to chat about business, where it's like a private community. We get to talk, every 4 to 6 weeks. And as of now, there's no limit to it because you guys are my first few students. So right now, there's no limit to the number of these fireside chats. It's just whenever you guys are available, every 4 to 6 weeks when I do post it up, then you can register for it and we can talk all about business for like about an hour. So the investment is $9.97. I know it might seem like a lot, but I want you to think about this as like an investment towards your future, especially if you are thinking like, oh, this is going to help me save so much time, heartache, and learn from a calligrapher who's done it for quite successfully for this many years. And the fact that you're going to get lifetime access to these videos and updates, and you're going to get these super valuable fireside chats as well. Like these are these normally would cost a lot more if we had like personal meetings on these. And because you guys are part of our workshop, you are getting a $200 off scholarship. So we're only offering this until August 31st. So access to the course plus 3 bonuses. So these 3 bonuses are, one is the Am I Doing This Right module. It's an audit, a 5-minute video audit of your page of choice. So you can send me like your Instagram account or your website or your online shop, or like a page or 2 of it. And I will go through it in the in a screen capture video and let you know kind of like what are the ways that you can improve it, and like a critique essentially. I've done this recently with my business consultant. It's just been really cool to be able to get like ideas of like, okay, how do I make this better? How do I help make this effective for my client? And then of course there's a flat lay photography and styling session. So you get access to this video session sharing some of my favorite tips and tricks for styling and photography for on a flat surface, as well as a welcome package, a curated set of goodies just for students. You guys have seen me talk about this on Instagram, but you're going to get this notebook, which is a dot grit notebook. I don't know if you guys can see me right now, but I think you can if you see me on this little screen here. Got this little welcome kit of what's inside, a coaster with the Calligraphy Business Kickstarter in it, a pen, and a decal. So you're going to get a decal that says Proud Calligraphy Biz Owner, and this pen, this gold pen with a sleeve from my vegan leather brand, Lorca Knives. So if I just go back really quickly so you guys can see. So again, this one is only until August 31st to get these, to get the scholarship as well as the bonuses. So outside of that, you won't be able to get them. We won't be, this is going to be the most that we will be offering to our students. And if in case you forget or you're still thinking about it, don't worry, you will be receiving an email at like tomorrow that talks a little bit more about this, and also the codes that you'll need to use. If you are one of my students from my previous classes, make sure you also wait for that email, because you have a special code as well that you will be receiving in your email. So that will go out to you first thing tomorrow. But as of right now, you can use this particular code already if you're ready to go. It's CBK Workshop, and you just need to head on over to writtenwordacademy.com/CBK. Okay, now I've talked a lot, and I know you guys are like, okay, Carla, let's get on to the questions. I'd love to get some answers. So I'm going to do that right now. So if you just bear with me while I just stop the sharing and get to read all of your questions here. Oh, there you go. Okay. All right, you guys. So now we're time to do some Q&A. So feel free, you can ask the questions onto the chat box, and I'll try to get to as most as I can to them. I think we're probably going to stop by 5:45, so we have about 15 minutes of Q&A sessions. Okay, so Celine Chu is asking here, when is the course starting? So the course is actually starting right away. So the moment you register, you can access the course right away. And it's a 6-week drip course. So that means that every week you're going to get access to certain sections. We've just found in our previous invitation design bootcamp that this really helps people kind of stay on track, or at least help a little bit to, keep things a little bit more bite-sized versus like having them all at once. So they're slowly go out that way. And Sarah is asking, is the course good for wedding stationery designers or more calligraphers only? So this particular course is good for calligraphers in general, specifically, modern or traditional calligraphers that are thinking of like making money through calligraphy. It's not just for writing stationery. My other course, Invitation Design Bootcamp, is specifically for creating stationery. That one is definitely more focused on like how to design, whereas this one is a lot more about the actual business setup and like creating the foundations, like the different pieces, so that you could launch your business well. Because and that's kind of why the initial, like when I had the slide earlier today, it's like, this is really for people who are thinking of setting up a business. Even if you've already set up your business and you're fairly new to your business, I think this is still good exercise, because you can still make these changes as you go. And that's the beauty about running your own business, that you're like the boss, right? Like you can make changes to how you'd like your business to be over time. And so that's okay. You can certainly make those changes for sure. Is your pricing for all your products and courses in USD? So recently I switched over my website, my e-commerce website, so you can now pay in Canadian. For this course though, if you would like to pay in Canadian, because the website can only do one currency, you'll need to email me at help@writtenwordacademy.com and with your billing address, like a proof of your billing address, and that way I can send you an invoice for it, and then you can pay me through Canadian this way. Florilyn is just asking, is the audit critique have a time frame? Like, you mean like when you're going to send it? That's a really great question. I haven't really thought about that, but I think that would be good if we could have it at least within 1 year, I would like to say, just so that I can make sure everybody is like just getting that piece particularly answered. Yeah, I hadn't even thought about like putting a limit to when that should be submitted, but I think like maybe as long as you can submit it within 1 year, which is I hope that you'll be ready by then. I think that would be a good spot to have it in there particularly. Okay. Any other questions about the course or about calligraphy business in general? If not, I do have some questions here from other people in the earlier session as well. Celine is asking, if I could start my business all over again, what would you change or do better in the beginning? I think, funny enough that you've asked this question, the first thing that came to my mind was my Etsy website. So I personally think like having an Etsy is a great way to start a business. I think it's a good place to like test the market out and see where things are. But I do think that sometimes Etsy can have like like he might get stuck a little bit on offering like a slightly lower price point for certain things. It has a more handmade feel to it to a certain extent. And the reason why I say that I probably wouldn't want to have an Etsy website anymore is because it doesn't connect to anything else. So last year, I had like my Black Friday sales, and I couldn't update the inventory across my website and my Canadian website and my Etsy. So I ended up having to reach out to some of my clients because they were buying the same thing and they were getting all sold out. And I just didn't have enough of everything. So I was so annoyed. I was so annoyed because um like I hate having to tell people that I'm so sorry you bought something but we don't have it. Like that's just not a good experience. So it was terrible. So yeah, I think like that would be probably one piece I would love to take out, but I have kept my Etsy website all this time because I do know that Etsy is good for SEO. Having like links to like your brand is always good, but Etsy is really very small. So for example, like until this day, you can't have an employee go on it. Like you have to give them your password to get onto the account. So I'm so annoyed because essentially what happens is for me, whenever I need to fulfill that, I have to like forward the email to my client. Like it's not like a seamless process, but that's why. Sarah is asking, how long do we have access to the course? So this calligraphy course is lifetime access. And although I will say I will have to update it over time because obviously things might change for certain things. We will be updating them over time. So you, as you're my first batch of students, you get lifetime access to these updates. The people who will sign up later on won't get the back info probably unless like I've changed it all completely. And Yuki is um, saying like, I'm Japanese and I'm very interested in your course. However, I'm sorry that I could only understand half of the native speaker's English. I would like to watch the video with English subtitles. Is that possible? Yes. So I have not yet done this, but yes, I will. I will get the English subtitles set up because I usually do this for my courses anyway. So I will make sure that we get those set up. So I would probably say it will show up in the next couple of weeks because it takes time for subtitles to get made. Like I mean, the captions to be made. But yes. Florilyn, we don't have Amazon Handmade in Canada. That's why I haven't tested it out yet. I'd love to be able to set it up, but I think that would be a good place to do it. Although I must say, like every single time I have tried to, so I have tried to get my items on Amazon, and maybe it's because I'm in Canada. The situation's a little bit different for us, especially for shipping. Shipping in Canada is expensive, and shipping outside of Canada is expensive too. So a lot of the fulfillment costs for Amazon is really difficult for us. So in fact, like having a Prime membership in Canada is terrible because we don't really get as many like good like deals and stuff like that for people. And that's why I'm like, maybe I won't. I know that what's her name? Ink Me This. Kestrel has an Amazon like store as well, and it's worked really amazingly for her. I think like yeah, maybe if I was in the States, I would recommend it a little bit better if because it's just because our situation here, it's just impossible for us to offer free shipping. It's just like we just can't afford it, and then the fulfillment costs Amazon charges in Canada are just, like way higher than what they offer in the States. But yeah. Irene is asking, is this course worth it for people who don't plan to start their business soon, but hopefully in the near future? I think so. I think it's great for people who are thinking of creating a business or are in the process of doing it. I would say that I guess like my type of personality, I like to do things almost like right away. Like I can't plan 3 years in advance. I have to be able to like do it in the next 6 months. And that's what I would say too for the rest of my courses. Like if you aren't able to do it right now, don't sign up for it yet. Sign up for it when you're ready, because it's better for you to take it when like the iron is hot and like people are like joining in. here, and that way you can join with everybody else who are learning at this point in time, because that way you kind of can gain from what they're learning, all at the same time as well. Because I think like the journey of like starting a calligraphy business can take a little bit of time, and it's like for I think like also somebody had asked me like how long does it actually take from like planning the business and launching, just so that you could prepare yourself like but I think like a good time to launch is about at least 3 months. That way you'll have like all of, like your ducks aligned, and so this is outside of like learning how to do calligraphy, but just so that you could like really set it up for success. Ideal, like in concept, yeah, you can like make an Etsy shop in a day, but like but I if you want to like make sure like you're finding the right business model, like doing all your research, like getting all your photos taken, getting like your business accounts, like get your bank accounts all set up and ready, like your website is up, your social media is up, like all of those like ducks in a row will definitely, I think it takes a little bit more time for sure. Next question here is, um when you started to expanding and needing to delegate some tasks to your staff, how did you cope with needing to let go of some control? I can't. And making sure that the style remains true to the way you want it to be. Oh my goodness, this is so hard because this is still a struggle. Um, it's hard. It's hard. So what I did in particular was to list out everything I did on a daily basis. And until now, my business consultant often asks me to redo it because sometimes she finds me doing things that my assistants or somebody else should be doing, and I keep doing them. Um, it was hard because nothing beats yourself, but then you only have limited amount of time. So for branding, I have a guide. I have a branding guide, and I talk about that in the course as well, like how to create this guide that people can like follow. Um, that helps a lot with aesthetic. Um, there's a lot of training involved, and that's why hiring people is always difficult. I'm actually hiring, by the way, you guys, if you're interested in working for Carla. I'm looking for another marketing and content assistant. I will be posting it in the next few days. Um, so that one was part of it, like having documentation of what I need to do, and then having like at least a couple of meetings. Like I have weekly check-ins with my assistants, some of them individually, depending on what it is, especially with regard to the marketing one. We will need to have like meetings where I'm, checking, and initially we'll have a lot more hand holding, and then it will like continue to grow over time as well, like like slowly like giving you more and more independence. It's hard because I personally, obviously am passionate about what I like to do, like how I like things to look. And but it's hard because people are not me, right? So like learning to accept that is still like an ongoing process, and that knowing that everybody's going to be different, and not everything's going to be exactly the same. Well, it's different for sure. And Lillian is asking here, like you mentioned that you don't get most of your wedding clients from Instagram, uh, and sorry, I'm like jumping words here. You mentioned that you don't get most of your wedding clients from Instagram anymore, and I'm curious where they mostly come from. So they definitely come from different places these days. I mean, and so maybe let me rephrase. I think that the reason why I don't get most of my wedding clients from Instagram anymore is because my Instagram now is not as focused on wedding invitations. And so I'm not producing a ton of content that's focused on wedding invitations in particular anymore. And I But before that, before I kind of switched my business around a little bit, I've definitely noticed like a difference as well because of the Instagram algorithm changing. So these days I've stepped back a little bit from the wedding invitations. So in particular, currently, the where I'm getting the most of my clients from are from my existing wedding planners that I've already worked with for many years. So like they're the ones that, continuously book the type of clients that normally would book me. And that's where I'm getting a lot of my clients still to this day. I think because I have pulled back from like posting a lot of invitation work on my Instagram. Like if you look at my Instagram right now, if you look like the last 9 posts, you probably won't, like, you'll see like maybe one invite. And so sometimes when people like our brides, like they come to me and they look at that, they might not know that I'm an invitation designer anymore. So like the approach is very different anymore, and that's okay, because right now, like my focus at the especially at this moment in time, I am currently focused on like launching this calligraphy business Kickstarter. And Celia is asking, when will you be launching a beginner's workshop and webinar? So I'm actually currently working on improving the current creative calligraphy workshop. So that course is going to be relaunching in January. We are refilming some parts of it after having it for almost 2 years now, and like kind of like gaining a lot of new knowledge about how to like share all about this information, and like what are the different struggles. It's just so different from having in-person workshops. Like in person, like you have certain questions that people ask and then that's it. But then you've also got in like after like being with me for like 12 weeks, like your questions are so much different. So we are going to be relaunching it, but it will most likely be in the January timeline. So I know it's kind of sad, it feels hard to make that decision sometimes, but I just want to make sure that that course is like really set to go before I launch it, and that's why it's taking a little bit of time. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this session today, and I'm really, really, really super excited to be teaching you guys all about like calligraphy business. And I'm so glad that so many of you guys joined today, and ask your questions. And I hope to see you guys in another live session. And if you have any questions for me at all, please feel free to DM me at Written Word Calligraphy. A lot of you guys do DM me there, and or send me an email at help@writtenwordacademy.com. Thank you so much, you guys. I'll see you guys next time. Bye for now.